What's happening, everybody? I'm Tyrone Bowman. This is Tyrone Bowman Tonight. Before I begin today, I want to send out a disclaimer that the topic that I'm going to be discussing is not intended for children. This is going to be a very sensitive topic, and I want to be able to address it intelligently, yet at the same time be forthright about the issue and issues that I'm going to be talking about. So you may want to take the time to remove your children out of the room, or simply just view it when you can privately. I'm really disturbed, and this is why I'm live on this Sunday morning. The topic that I've chosen to talk about is entitled All Lives Matter. No, I'm not dealing with the Black Lives Matter issue. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about two disturbing situations. One that I found out this morning as I was driving into the station. I was listening to a particular radio station as they were talking about an event that unfortunate event that happened in Philadelphia with a Temple University police officer who was brutally murdered. And then I'm going to, in the second segment, I'm going to talk about the 5 police officers from Memphis who all pled guilty concerning the murder of Tyre Nichols. So let me just say this to begin with before I start reading this article as published by The Hill. All lives are important, not just the lives of a select few, not just the lives of the rich and the powerful, not just the lives of the celebrity or individuals who are what people consider to be involved in noble professions in life. All lives matter, irregardless of who we are, regardless of race, color, creed, gender, irregardless of ethnicity. There's a passage of scripture that says, all souls are mine, saith the Lord. It's found in the book of Ezekiel. I don't have time to look it up right now. But let me read this article from the publication titled The Hill. Quote, a Temple University officer was fatally shot while on duty near the Philadelphia campus on Saturday night. The officer, whose identity has not been released, was responding to a robbery at the time, according to the university. There are simply no words that can make sense of such a tragedy, University President Jason Wingard said in a statement. It tears at our sense of community and safety. We all mourn this unspeakable loss. This loss comes at a time when gun violence continues its horrific impact on our city and our country. Wingard wrote, Philadelphia and the nation are dealing with an unprecedented epidemic of violence, and the tragedy that took place tonight is a gut-wrenching reminder of our police officers' daily bravery and sacrifices to protect our students, faculty, staff, and community. The suspect fled the area, and both the University Police and Philadelphia Police Department are investigating the incident. The statement said the school is keeping the identity of the officer private out of respect for the officer's family and friends. This loss will reverberate throughout our community. It will impact all of us in the days and weeks to come. We encourage Temple community members to seek support, Wingard added. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro also offered his condolences on Saturday night, sharing on social media that he was devastated by the news. We're sending prayers to his loved ones, Temple Police, and the entire at Temple University community, Shapiro said. May his memory be a blessing. Philadelphia Mayor John Kenney said he was heartbroken and outraged by the news. The city of Philadelphia joins the Temple community in mourning. My deepest condolences to his family and loved ones, he wrote in a tweet. Close quote. What happened in Philadelphia is tragic. I'm from Philadelphia. I've lived in Philadelphia all my life, and I've never seen such violence and unprecedented mayhem as I see him right now. But there's an even greater concern here. Number one, the individual who committed this unnecessary crime, he should be found and he should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. And whatever he has to deal with in terms of ramifications, he brought it all upon himself. To the family of the officer who was unjustly taken out of this life, my sincere empathy and prayers to the family and to well wishers and to the law enforcement community as a whole. All lives matter. Now I'm going to read another article, and then I'm going to tie it all in and wrap it up in a package. I want to go over to Memphis and talk about the 5 officers who pled not guilty. And this is really sickening to read. Here we are. I think I found the article. Let's go back one. I want you to listen to this article as written in the Washington Post. 5 ex-Memphis police officers pled not guilty in Tyree Nichols' death. With family of slain men looking on in the courtroom, judge schedules next appearance for fired Memphis officers for May 1. Quote, after 5 former Memphis police officers charged in the beating death of Tyree Nichols pleaded not guilty in a court appearance Friday, Nichols' mother issued a challenge to the officers outside the courtroom. Look me in the face. I want each and every one of those police officers to look me in the face. Rovard Will said in a news conference, they didn't do that today. They didn't even have the courage to look me in the face after what they did to my son. During the hearing, Judge James Jones asked onlookers for continued civility as the case is adjudicated, and he set the next court appearance for the officers on May 1. We understand that there may be some high emotions, but we ask that you continue to be patient with us, Jones said. The graphic video of Nichols' January 7 beating captured by the officers' body cameras and a police surveillance camera prompted protests across the country last month, adding urgency to campaigns for nationwide police reform and eliciting responses from President Biden and the United Nations. Officers kicked and punched Nichols and struck him with a baton after he fled on foot from a traffic stop that quickly turned violent. The 29-year-old black man died in a hospital 3 days later. The 5 officers, all of whom are also black, were fired from the department, then arrested criminally charged on January 26. The officers, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith, each faced counts of second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression. Each was released on bond after the arrest last month. The Nichols family wrote a letter to the UN requesting urgent action regarding the torture and extrajudicial killing of Tyree Nichols. In a statement on February 10, United Nations human rights officials cited the young man's death and the death of Keenan Anderson, a DC teacher who died after police in Los Angeles repeatedly used a taser on him. In calling for police reform and accountability, the brutal deaths of Keenan Anderson and Tyree Nichols are more reminders of the urgency to act, said Yvonne Makgoro, chairperson of the UN International Independent Expert Mechanism to Advance Racial Justice and Equality in the Context of Law Enforcement. UN experts said the killing of Nichols violated international norms protecting the right to life and prohibiting torture or other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. On Friday, Nichols' mother said she planned to be in the audience at each of the officers' court appearances. I feel very numb right now, Wells said. I'm waiting for this nightmare that I'm going through, for somebody to wake me up, but I know that's not going to happen. The consequences for the beating death of Nichols also have extended to 3 Memphis Fire Department employees who were fired and 2 Shelby County Sheriff's Office deputies who were suspended for 5 days. A sixth officer, Preston Hemphill. I'll be talking about him in detail in another video because he is held liable just as the 5 black officers are at the same time. So 6th police officer Preston Hemphill was fired as well. Hemphill can be heard on body camera footage saying, "I hope they stop his A," as Nichols fled from his initial detainment. Attorneys for 2 of the officers charged made pleas to fairness on Friday, urging the public to wait before passing judgment on what happened during the arrest. Blake Bowman, who is representing Mills, said the demand for change is how the criminal justice system treats black men as valid and that Mills is at risk of becoming a victim. Let me read that again. Attorneys for 2 of the charged officers made pleas for fairness on Friday, urging the public to wait before passing judgment on what happened during the arrest. Did they show fairness to Tyree Nichols? Did they ask questions, or did they just brutally outright murder him? Blake Bowman, who is representing, I mispronounced it earlier, Blake Bowman, who is representing Mills, said the demand for change is how the criminal justice system treats black men as valid, and that Mills is at risk of becoming a victim. Becoming a victim of what? He was a law enforcement officer. He was part of the Scorpion unit, the elite unit. That was the prize unit to deter crime and things of that nature. Let's not forget that my client is a black man in a courtroom in America. Bowman told reporters after the court appearance, much has been said about the ways this system failed Mr. Nichols, and I will work tirelessly to make sure that the system does not fail Mr. Mills and that a fair outcome is achieved. Bean's attorney, John Keith Perry Jr., said there has been a rush to judgment of the officers since the video's release. Perry challenged a reporter who asked him to justify Bean's innocence in light of the footage. Have you ever made an arrest? Perry asked. Have you ever jumped out of a car trying to apprehend somebody you think might have committed a carjacking, a rape, a robbery, a kidnapping? Good try, counselor, but it doesn't pass the smell test. You're getting paid to defend these men, and you'll tell any lie to make sure that happens. Memphis NAACP President Van Turner called on lawmakers to pass legislation to prevent police killings. Not going to happen. The Tennessee House Democratic Caucus said last month it planned to introduce legislation this year that would prevent officers who are fired for excessive force from being rehired by other departments, among other measures. Not going to happen. This case is going to be a landmark decision, but it also needs to lead to policy. Turner said, how do we stop this from happening again? All lives matter. Back to Philadelphia. What happened in Philadelphia should have never happened. And the law enforcement community has a right to be upset. They have a right to be angry. And they have the right to seek justice. Growing up in Philadelphia, I've seen all kind of injustice happen. I've witnessed all kind of mess. I've seen all kind of stuff go on for decades, and yet no justice was rendered. People are often found guilty even before they are adjudicated in the court of law. That's why most individuals, when they're arrested, they try to get a confession out of them. Miranda rights are violated. Individuals are not even considered being human beings. Constitutional rights are constantly being violated. All lives matter, not just the lives of police officers. Tyree Nichols' life mattered. I said Tyree Nichols' life mattered. Notice it only took 20 days to fire these officers, now ex-officers. I wonder why. How come they didn't take their time to, quote unquote, drag it out? Why didn't the FOP come to their defense? How come the chief of police didn't try to defend them? Because they know that they're in the wrong. What happened in Philadelphia should have never happened. It is wrong, it is unjust, it's not right. And the person who savagely murdered the Temple University officer, he should be found, and he should be prosecuted to fullest extent of the law. But why is it that when men and women of color are always shot, murdered rather, why is it always the standard statement, I was in fear of my life? And in most instances, a lot of individuals who were murdered didn't do anything that justified it. Let me tell you something firsthand. I know what it is to be on the other end of unjust arrest, unjust conviction, unjust trial. I've lived it. I've been through it. And that's why I'm making decisions. I could care less about trying to change it from within. But once you become a part of that system, you're not changing anything. You're going to go along to get along. That's how it works. Because if you don't, you won't have a job in law enforcement. And this conversation needs to be had on a national level. Those 5 black police officers down in Memphis who pled not guilty, they're guilty. They're guilty as hell. No, there's no amount of justification. I don't care what type of defense that their attorneys try to come up with. They are guilty. They did it. It was intentional. It was malicious. It was premeditated. It was unjustifiable. Moving forward in this nation must take into consideration that all lives are important. The lives of the rich and the lives of the poor. The lives of the blacks, the lives of white people, the lives of Asians, the lives of Muslims, the lives of Christians. All lives are important. All human life is important. In this nation, the criminal justice system needs to be reformed. It has to be. So that any individual, whether they are a civilian or not, they get a fair trial, a fair arrest. Nobody's constitutional rights should be violated. This is why it's important for people to know what the Constitution says, read the Constitution, study the Constitution. Politicians violate the law every day, and those who write the law always violate the law. Then they turn around and they want the same constitutional protection that they deny others of. It's not fair, and it's not right. I'll reiterate it. It's not fair, and it's not right. What we don't know will hurt us. The 2 articles I just read, one from The Hill and one from the Washington Post. There's no comparison to these 2 stories. The first story, individual, he's got to be found and he must be prosecuted. He must pay the price for what he has done. The second article, 5 fired police officers in Preston, Hemphill. Let me sure I'm pronouncing his name right, because I want to be sure I'm getting this right here. Let me go back into this article. Preston Hemphill. He must be prosecuted just like the rest of them. It is important that our law enforcement officers work with compassion, work with dignity. I keep hearing this phraseology, one bad apple, one bad apple. There's no such thing as one bad apple. Either you're corrupt or you're decent. Either you're law-abiding or you're rotten. That's it. There's no such thing as one bad apple. That's something that has been invented to justify wrongdoing. Now, let's look at the flip side. Suppose, hypothetically, that was 5 white police officers who had murdered a black man. In the same like fashion, I doubt very seriously if they would have been fired within 20 days. And then there's the chief of police. Why is she silent all of a sudden? And she had so much to say in the beginning. This is going to be very political after a while. And all the calls for reform, all the calls to change everything, nothing ever changes. But all lives do matter. The lives of the young, the lives of the old, the lives of the rich, the lives of the poor, the lives of the learned, the lives of the unlearned, the lives of the righteous, the lives of the unrighteous. Everybody deserves to have the opportunity, irregardless of what public perception is. And even, let me just say this. I have a lot of friends who work in law enforcement, and I even have family members who work in law enforcement. And we have some heated discussions because I view things a little differently than the way they view them. They view them from their perspective, and I have to view it from an entirely different perspective. Should we support law enforcement? Yes. Should they have all the tools and training that they need to protect and defend society? Yes. Should they be given the utmost respect? Yes, but they don't have the right to break the law. They don't have the right to abuse people. They don't have the right to take the law into their own hands and then fabricate, lie, cover it up. You remember the district attorney Naifang, who charged unjustly 2 Duke University, I think it was lacrosse players, with raping an African American woman at a party, and it never happened. He did it for political purposes. And they came from extremely wealthy families. And that's why justice was swift. That's why justice came at such a high price. That's why Naifan was disbarred from ever holding office again. I remember the hearing. Very, very, very serious hearing. To those men and women who are mourning their fallen officer, we mourn with you. To the Nichols family, as you mourn the death of your son, we mourn with you. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. All lives matter, irregardless of who we are, irregardless of where we come from, irregardless of what individuals may perceive us not to be. Never surrender. Never quit.